Okay, we're live.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Dan and everybody. Thanks for being on the call. It's August the 12th. And we're gonna start, first of all, of course, with our little mantra. The slaughterhouse of failure is not in our destiny. We will persevere until we succeed. Augmandino, little modified. We have a couple of questions for you. The first one, today we're going to talk about the measures of success. Just to prepare you, we'd like you to think about what are your measures of success. But in the meanwhile, we'd also like to ask, Dan and I both, are we doing a good job? Are we doing a reasonable job? How good a job are we doing with these calls on Friday? Are we contributing positively? Are we making people introspect and maybe help you with your decisions and your businesses and so on? We'd like you to think about it, and then we'll come back to that. But the big question is, what is your personal definition of success? Basically, that's the theme of today. So, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, really, I want everybody to think about, Lawrence and I have been talking about this the last couple of days, and I've been going on rants about it. He's probably tired of listening to me talk about it, but I first want to say that Lawrence didn't get approval from me to go on his little trip to Toronto. He went ahead and did it. But how do you measure success? Do you feel successful? What is your measure of success? What makes you feel successful? I'm gonna mute everybody. Lawrence, you're gonna have to unmute yourself. What makes you feel successful? And how are you measuring it? We talk about the 4 disciplines of execution. We talk about lead measures, lag measures, but there's other ways to measure success. And each of us has to define success first and foremost. To be able to measure it, we have to know what success means to each and every one of us. So there's a number of different ways to measure success. Obviously profitability. The true measure of success will be creating sustained profitability that continues long into the future, right? And that's what we talk about a lot in our business, is creating that long-term residual income. But there's a number of things that we need to do and that we need to focus on to really make sure that it goes beyond profitability, right? And that there's a ripple effect there with talking about how many customers do you have? What's your number of customers? Are those customers that you have satisfied? What's the level of satisfaction of those customers? Are your coworkers satisfied? Is everybody doing what they can do? Are they meeting their full potential? Do they know what success is to them? Have they even defined it? I mean, if you haven't defined what success means for you, you need to do that immediately. Because for some people, it's money. For some people, it's helping others. For some people, it's, looking at profitability. For some other people, it's customer satisfaction. Are the customers that you're dealing with on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, are they happy? And then you have to look at your level of learning and knowledge, and then ultimately how you spend your time. So those are the things that we're kind of going to talk about today. But anytime you're starting a new business, the first few months aren't going to be that profitable, right? And so you have to get through that, and you have to make the right decisions to how you can make that profitable and how you can get to a point where you're actually paying yourself in that business. So, for me, profitability is super important because it allows you to continue working that business, and, probably not just for me, probably for everybody. But, when you finally start having enough money left over to pay yourself, then you can say, I'm being successful as far as profitability is concerned. But until you get to that point, you can't really say that, right? You're just throwing money out the window towards the business to make it be successful. And you have to do that in the beginning, or you're not going to get there. Lawrence, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I think obviously on the business side, we have to consider a yardstick of profitability in terms of money and what we can do with it, especially with regards to how we can hopefully attain enough to be able to distribute our time as we wish. And what are we going to do with that? But I think that the success of everybody is different. So for example, if we look in life and look around, there's some people that are quite happy, working for a charity and just giving their heart to it. And they think they feel like they're contributing to the world by helping through having a big heart. And there is that old wheel of life that we always talk about, what I do anyway, talk about the wheel of life, where you've got the levels of success for your family. What are those? The level of success for your community. What are those? The level of success for your health, for your fitness, for work, and of course your financial aspect. So there's a wheel of life that has to be very balanced so that it will be able to, so your life will be able to run in a smooth way. So each one of these aspects of our life, in my opinion, are extremely important because they each help to balance the next. So if you've got a very good financial result, there are a lot of rich people that are unhappy. People reach financial success because they think that's the whole end and the end of everything. Wow, I've become a millionaire. And then you find that they're on drugs and they've got all sorts of issues and so on, because they don't know really what the balance of life is. So, today I just happened to look and see it. It doesn't matter how much you have, rather it matters who you become. Blake Roney said that, who you become. And I think this is what I think we should consider also, because we, as you rightly said, Dan, we've got to look at how successful we are financially, of course, because that's unfortunately the way life is. We live in a world that depends on us supporting our families financially, but we also have to support them morally and ethically, and we have to be healthy. We have to help our families be healthy. We have to maybe contribute to our communities, our spirituality. That's a huge one too. I've got somebody that I refer to a lot that is very, very, very wealthy, but he's spiritually bankrupt. So that's no point either. That's no use either. So if we talk about the financial side, then all the points that you mentioned, Dan, are essential, and I totally agree with you. But I'm just adding that we also have to consider all the other things, that are essential as well, especially when we have families.
Yeah, a lot of times we get so focused on chasing profitability.
Yeah.
We forget about the people that are helping us get there, right? And so, I've talked about this numerous times. The thing that's made me successful in other businesses was that I always focused on people first. I focused on customers, made sure that they were having a great customer service experience, making sure that I provided products that were useful to them and they saw value in, and then really making sure that I'm maintaining a high level of satisfaction of those customers. And that's something that we don't really focus on a lot in this business. We focus more on how are we going to place subscriptions? How are we going to, place scanners? But, we don't really focus enough on our customers. And that includes people in our organization. Anybody that we bring into this business, they're our customers also. And so I don't think that you can ever focus on the customer enough, whoever that customer may be, whether it's somebody utilizing a product or whether it's somebody engaging in this business with you. So me personally, I need to do a much better job of that with my team and a much better job of that with my physicians, and really, getting them to think more about customer service. How many customers are they going to put on product, and how many of those customers are they going to keep on product, through really explaining to them the need for high quality nutrition in helping to prevent disease and helping these people be healthier and living healthier, happier lives. One of my businesses that I don't think I've ever really talked about on here is I provide services and products to disabled veterans across the US through the VA medical system. And so next week, I'm actually going to be meeting with the highest ranking member of the VA medical system in the entire United States to talk to him about this very topic. It's not about profitability. It's about servicing their customers. Their customers are the vets, right? And they're not servicing those customers properly. And how can they, they have things in place. They have initiatives in place for new technologies. They have initiatives in place to provide non-narcotic, non-opioid solutions to these patients who have given everything that they could for us in our country. And we're not giving back to them what we should be giving back. So what I find out is that there's all of these hurdles within the VA medical system put up by different departments and not the physicians. The physicians aren't allowed to prescribe what they think is the best thing for their patients, customer service, right? And then the other departments within the VA system aren't allowing the physicians who are their customers to do their job by doing what's best for their patients. And so the conversation is all going to be about customer service, and it's all going to be about how to increase that level of satisfaction for these customers, for the vets. And how do we negotiate or navigate these hurdles and these obstacles within the VA medical system to make sure that we're getting the vets what they need. And so I just bring that up because it's all about customer service, right? When you focus on people, the profitability is going to follow. So I think it's super important that we figure out systems, we figure out ways. We start talking to our physicians that have scanners and people on our team about this customer service piece. It's about the number of customers. The ultimate measure of your success should be a growing customer base with a steady stream of leads in the pipeline. Whether that's for the scanner or whether that's for the products. Those initial customers when you first get into the business, that's exciting. But more and more people are going to gain interest when we treat those customers right, make sure that they're having a good experience, and then they start sharing with others, right? And then beyond the quantity of the customers, the true measure of success should really be about how happy you're making those customers, how happy these products are making these customers, right? And when those two things fall into place and you're doing that properly, the profitability is going to follow.
Dan, 100%. The thing is, and what we're looking at now is also say, we're always looking at, being able to put more people, get more scanners, get more people on the business and so on. But the ultimate goal is not that. The ultimate goal is to satisfy those people that we've got into the business so that they can satisfy their customers who are their patients. So ultimately, our objective is to be able to have a maximum effect, a beneficial effect on patients via the doctors. And in order to do that, we've got to be much more attentive to customer satisfaction, which is our initial customer is the doctor or the healthcare professional or the customer that we're talking to. So the pharma reps actually visit their doctors, I don't know, probably once a month, even if they go there and just assign a book to say they got there. But we don't do that. We place a device, we place a scanner, we make a sale, and maybe a year goes by when you haven't really followed up and say, how are you doing? We haven't really looked at that lag measure to determine if we've been successful in implementation of that scanner. The success of the implementation of the scanner, for example, or of whatever we do in life, is not just something that we've done in the first half an hour. How's it 5 years from now? What happened to that person that we talked to, or how did we influence positively with somebody, and what was the result? And 5 years from now, And if they see you on the street, say, oh my gosh, you were so instrumental in helping, you changed my life. That's success, in my opinion. But it's changed my life how? It could be financial. It could be I now have time to be with my kids. I now have time to pursue my hobby, my sport, my passion, or whatever it is. So the measure of success is different for everybody. But I also strongly endorse what you're saying, that we've got to have that follow up. We've got to be able to be able to look back and say, wow, yes, it was successful because I stayed with it, because I was able to help my team. I was able to help that person. I was able to get the team to help their people. And this is what networking is about. It's about being able to get to and influence a lot of people and make them successful.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it doesn't matter if you put 1 million people on product or if your physicians put 1 million people on product. If 6 months down the line, you only have 50 people on product.
Yeah.
Out of that million. So how do we create a better customer service experience? How do our physicians talk to patients? How do the physicians get those patients back to talk to them? Make sure that they're having a good customer service experience. Making sure that that level of satisfaction is high. And one way they can do that is bringing them back for rescans. I don't think enough of our physicians are bringing their patients back for rescans. And that's why a lot of them drop off, because they're not seeing the value. The satisfaction level is not there, right? They're not seeing, and they need to be feeling a difference, and they need to be seeing a difference. And if they can't do both, they need to do one or the others, either feeling a difference or seeing a difference. And most people aren't going to feel a difference. So you need to get them back in there to see the difference, right? I was at 20,000, I'm at 50,000 now. The products are working, they're improving my life, they're improving, I may not be able to see the way that they're improving my life other than this score, but through the literature, we can show them that, look, this is really stacking the deck in your favor to be healthier and really mitigate chronic disease. And so, we've looked at these other two, we've looked at these two things. We've looked at, customers, customer service. We've looked at, level of customer satisfaction and how that all, if you have those two things, the profitability is going to come. But one of the most important things for me is my own satisfaction. Am I being satisfied by what I'm doing in this business? Am I being successful based on what my measure of success is, right? And it's hard for me because I'm entrepreneurial and I'm really never satisfied. Anybody that knows me will tell you, he's never satisfied with where he's at or whatever measure of success he has. But you need to pair these two things together and have them be kind of one and the same. You need to be satisfied with what you're doing. You need to have a level of success that you've set for yourself and how you're going to measure that. But ultimately, for me, I want to have a level of satisfaction that I'm helping people, that I'm providing the best customer service that I can, that I'm helping my team grow, and I'm moving everything forward towards that, whatever that level of success is for me. And you need to do the same. So I want everybody this weekend to think about what success is to you. Is it helping people become healthier? Is it making money? Is it helping others grow? What is that level of success? And how are you reaching that? And I personally think that you can always reach that by your level of customer satisfaction and your level of customer service.
In business, customer service, but in life, it's anybody that you are, it's your circle of influence in life. So the satisfaction, as I say, satisfaction is something, in my opinion, where down the road you've made a positive difference to somebody's life. And in this case, the doctors can make a positive difference to somebody's life or the healthcare professionals with their health. And we can help the physicians with their time and their money and their stress levels. And the satisfaction comes from being able to feel good about yourself, to feel proud, to feel that you're you're not some egocentric person just looking after oneself. And I think the if we look at how the healthcare industry is, please look at a little video. It's called Escape Fire. Escape Fire. It's a documentary. It's on YouTube. And there's a trailer on it for 4 minutes. I show everybody that because it shows just how we've sunk into a very unhealthy health system, sick care industry. Escape Fire, Escape Fire. And there is where we've sunk into. And this is where the satisfaction comes for us, for me, is to be able to help people be aware and to get out of that, to make a positive difference and not just be a pill popper and not just be someone who's, surviving on pills. And there's so many things that we need to do and we are doing. And I think making a positive interest being a positive influence, be it financially or otherwise, with the people that are in our circle of influence, that is, for me, the satisfaction. And for everybody is different. But it starts with the tools that we've got. And the tools that we've got are phenomenal tools to be able to help positively and influence people in every aspect of their lives. Money, time, and what they do with it, and their families, and all the rest of it. So this is such a wonderful business to be in, thanks to the corporation the company, the corporation that we're all part of, because the tools are there for us to be able to be influencers and catalysts to help a lot of people with their dreams. The important thing is define your satisfaction. What is your level of satisfaction? Everybody's got to understand what it is they want. That's why we come to those questions. Who are you? How well do you know yourself? And what do you want? If we answer those, then we can get to the further part.
Awesome points, Lawrence. And the last thing I want to talk about, because we're running short on time here, is how are you spending your time? And you need to know what success is to you, how successful you want to be in whatever that measure of success is, or whatever success is defined for you. You need to be spending time focused on that, right? And that's going to determine what your main priorities are to be a leader in your organization or your company or customer service or, whatever it may be, profitability. Figure out what that success is and what it means to you. Do you feel successful? How are you going to make yourself feel successful if you don't feel successful? Focus on the customers, focus on the level of customer satisfaction, and then determine what your satisfaction is. And then ultimately, how are you going to spend your time? How are you going to spend your time focused on creating the success that you want in your life, that you want in this business, that you want with your customers? And the way you create lifelong customers is through customer satisfaction and customer service. So do we have any questions, comments, concerns? I know Lawrence and I have to jump on another call here in about 4 minutes, so we've got a few minutes here.
I think if everyone sees, there's a CD that's by Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret. And I think it was the best definition of success I've heard. It's success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Oh, and that was on The Strangest Secret. And he goes through that. And he says, one of the things to, like you said, to be able to measure your success, you have to have a written goal. Otherwise, it's just wishful thinking. Because you have a written goal, you can actually celebrate when you achieve that goal. Have a goal with a deadline. And so that, you can share your goals with other people with leadership, and they can look at what you're actually telling yourself. Sometimes our inner conversation is the biggest conversation you got to have. And so sometimes it's changing a couple words in your goals. Like I bring my goals to my mentors, like, hey, here's what I'm thinking about. This is my goals. And I'm like, yes, but you got to shift this word here. He always taught me to take the word if out my vocabulary. So a lot of times when you correct ourselves in the group, well, if I get this group, no, when you get this group. And so just having that written goal to have that accountability to yourself and to the group. And it's also good when you have a written goal, when you have your circle group, like Lawrence was talking about, get with each other, share your goals, and have the people reinforce that belief. So, you know, when you shared that you wanted to be your team elite by your date, us reinforcing your goal, Dan, to be like, hey, you can do that. We believe in you. And I don't think we get enough positive reinforcement in our life or around that, with people enforcing the reality that we can achieve what we want to achieve.
Thank you. Good.
Awesome.
you.
Yeah, I love that quote. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, good. I need to take it down properly. Anybody else got anything else to add? No?
All right.
Okay, well, everybody define your goals and define what you want, because that rubs off on other people, your own positivity and good vibes. Thank you, Dan. Thanks everybody for being on the call.
Thanks,
Have an
everybody.
awesome Friday, everybody.
We'll see you next week.
Great weekend, everyone. Thanks.
Bye-bye. Thank you.